Welcome to the All Things Nintendo podcast. I'm Brian Shea, and this is a weekly podcast to discuss all the biggest news and games from the world of Nintendo. This week, we have a couple of big upcoming Switch 2 games that we will be breaking down during the main segment. After we discuss all the news, we'll be taking the main topic of conversation, discussing the latest Nintendo Direct featuring Donkey Kong Bananza, as well as my hands-on impressions of Borderlands 4. Joining me for that is a longtime freelancer, and he's now at Restart, Jesse Vitelli. Jesse, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. Excited to talk about all things Nintendo and beyond.
It's funny how that name works out, huh?
Yeah.
It is funny because I was at Bandai Namco one time, and I was talking to just one of the people that helps set up the event space and everything. During a break, and they were just coming in, checking to see if everything was going smoothly with the event. And we got to talking, and she was like, "Oh yeah, I love Nintendo games." And I'm like, "Oh, I have a Nintendo podcast." And she's like, "What do you talk about? All things Nintendo?" And I'm like, "Yes, we did it, nailed it,
got him."
So yeah, fun little story there. But Jesse, we have a time-honored tradition on All Things Nintendo when a new guest joins the show. You were on the Patreon multi-platform show that unfortunately no longer exists, called All Things Gamers. But over here on All Things Nintendo, we do things a little bit differently for debuting guests. It is a tradition called First Nintendo Game, Favorite Nintendo Game. And the two-part question is fairly self-explanatory, even though I will admit that the initial part is a little bit open to interpretation. So Jesse, what is your first Nintendo game?
So since it's a little up to interpretation, the first Nintendo game I remember playing and completing and feeling like I had ownership over it was Paper Mario on the Nintendo 64. That was my first real. I owned it. I got to play it, and I saw it through to the end. And that's what I have the fondest memory of when I think back to my childhood playing Nintendo games.
That's such an interesting answer. What an entry point. Your first entry point really into Mario was not Super Mario Brothers or Mario 64 even being on that same console. It was an RPG starring Mario. That is such a did you think that because it's when I played Final Fantasy for the first time, it was Final Fantasy X, and I remember being oh wow, I need to just play every single Final Fantasy from here on out, or go back into the back catalog. And then I learned that the battle systems were all different, and the story wasn't congruous with the other entries. Final Fantasy 8 has nothing to do with Final Fantasy 10, and then I didn't like the combat of Final Fantasy 12. So I was I learned a harsh lesson that every single Final Fantasy game is drastically different and not even related to the other one in a lot of ways. Did you have that experience with Mario when you went to go play other Mario games?
Yeah, a little bit. It was interesting because I had seen Mario, I was aware that those games looked drastically different, but I never played them. So I was just kind of oh yeah, that's whatever, that's Mario. And then when I finally went back to play, I think it was Super Mario, is it 2 Advance, whatever the Game Boy Advance one was. I got that as a pack-in with my Game Boy Advance. And I was oh, this isn't turn-based. I don't know what this is. Because despite it all, I never actually played Mario 64 on the Nintendo 64. Wow. I eventually did go and play it, but it wasn't during that period of my life.
But you
I
had
played,
an N64.
Yes.
You might be the only person in history to have a Nintendo 64 that you owned back in the day, and you didn't play Mario 64. Did you play Ocarina of Time?
Not kind of.
What are we doing here, Jesse?
Kind of. My cousin had it, and I used to go over to my cousin's house, and we'd always play it, but they didn't have they didn't save. Or we always played a new save.
Okay.
So it was always we played the opening to Ocarina of Time 100 times. So I never really saw past Link doing somersaults in Hyrule Field to get to the town. Never really saw past that too far. Constantly just played the opening of that game. And it wasn't until again much later in life that I went and played it.
That's how my dad handles the copy of Uncharted 4 that came with his PlayStation 4 because he wanted a Blu-ray player. He would just fire up Uncharted 4 and play through the opening sequence over and over and over again because he was just blown away by the graphics, but he didn't want any kind of challenge or save file or anything that he had to maintain. But okay, let's broaden this out a little bit. Mario Kart 64.
Never played it.
I'm completely dumbfounded. What else did you own then with your
Okay.
Paper Mario?
Pokemon Stadium 1 and 2.
Okay, good
Paper
answers.
Mario. Gex, Enter the Gecko, I think was one of the other ones I owned.
Honestly, this is explaining a lot about everything I know about you, Jesse.
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, that might have been it. I rented some things from like Blockbuster and whatever else, but I don't think I really owned that many 64 games. Oh, Kirby and
Crystal
is it
Shards.
Crystal Shards? That was the other one. I played a lot of Kirby and the Crystal Shards.
Okay. Slight
And
redemption
that
arc
Yoshi
here.
game,
Okay,
the
yeah. Yoshi's Story.
Yoshi story. Again,
Yo,
though, that one took me way too long to figure out how to get past the first guy with the stop sign.
yeah.
Like way too long.
It's like
But yeah,
Sonic 3 with the red barrel in the carnival or casino night
yes.
zone, where it's like I'm just stuck here for the rest of my life, I guess. And then I accidentally pressed the down on the D-pad. And I'm like, oh, okay, so that's you with the butt slam on the guy with the stop
Hmm.
sign. Okay, this that veered dangerously close to my Joker origin story of you telling me all these iconic N64 games you did not. Did you ever play Beetle Adventure Racing? Like that seems up your alley.
No, but I'm gonna go check that out after this show
You
because I've never
absolutely
ever heard
should.
of it. That might actually be my next game I play.
It is an underrated racing game that every single car is the Volkswagen Beetle, which was released around the time that this game was in existence. So it was like
Oh,
a brand new thing, like the Volkswagen Beetle, like the new version, the newer version.
okay,
Was
all right.
introduced around that time, and it was like, hey, what if we just did an entire racing game around the Volkswagen Beetle? But it is a shockingly good racing game, so you should check it out.
All right, I will. That sounds incredible. I'll put it on the list of the 5 N64 games I've apparently played.
But Jesse, we have a second part of this question, and it is a little bit less open to interpretation, and hopefully a little bit more, a little bit less unhinged. We'll say. It is your favorite Nintendo game. What is your favorite Nintendo game of all time?
Pokemon Crystal,
Okay,
and
why
it's not
Pokemon
even
Crystal?
close. Pokemon Crystal is a game that I enjoyed when I was younger. Um, Again, Pokemon's a weird one because I just started with Pokemon. Like, I guess if you ask me like what my first Nintendo game is, technically it's Pokemon, but I don't remember any of it. I was like too young to actually comprehend anything that's going on. I have very little memories of it. But it was like as I started to get older, I went back and I started to play Pokemon Red and Blue and Yellow. And then I got Crystal as I think it was a Christmas gift, and I played it and I had that moment that everybody has where you realize you can go back to Kanto. But I think in my adult life, I really like Crystal because I also really like to speed run Crystal. And I think that there's something about that world and understanding the sort of hidden mechanics of Pokemon that I'm not really interested in going competitive with in the more modern games like Scarlet Violet and Sword and Shield.
Mm-hmm.
But I do really enjoy doing like randomizers and sort of all these different things you could do within Crystal and just understanding that world. I think it's some of the best sprite work that series has ever seen. I think only rivaled by Black and White has really incredible sprite work, but it's just a focused game. It's so incredibly focused and expansive that
Mm-hmm.
like it just works. It has the right number of Pokemon. You're not overwhelmed. You kind of know what you're getting into with that. And I think like from start to finish, somebody today could go play Crystal, and it feels very much designed like a modern game. And I think just across the board, it's one of the better Pokemon entries, if not the best Pokemon entry.
How do you feel about Heart Gold and Soul Silver?
I like them. I don't have any like qualms with them. I think that Heart Gold and Soul Silver are about as great as you can ask a remake to be. I think following the Pokemon is always something that I'll be a sucker for. Like the Pokemon following you, something I'll always be a sucker for. It's like the one thing I wish Crystal had, but
Mm-hmm.
obviously it doesn't. It's just something I haven't really revisited or felt the need to because I think Crystal is still so great in my opinion that when I want to revisit that world, I just go play Crystal. I don't think to go play Heart Gold Soul Silver, but they're great, and like I highly recommend anyone who's never played them to also check those out.
Does that mean that Crystal is your number one wish list game for Nintendo Switch Online?
Yes and no. It's one of those things where it'd be nice to have a copy of it and just like be able to play it on my Switch super easily. But at the same time, like I said, like I play so many randomized like other versions of that game that uh, I'm good. But if it means more people get to play Pokemon Crystal, then yeah, heck yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why they haven't put the Pokemon games like not even just on Nintendo Switch Online. Like if they just wanted to release like the Pokemon games individually, like they did on 3DS, Like, do that. Just get. I don't know if they're like struggling to crack the code of like there's like all these two screen games like the DS and 3DS era, and
Yep.
it's like, did they like not want to try to crack that code, even though it would be very easy to just move that onto the screen?
They could so easily just package those as like a $20 thing. Like, here's red, blue, yellow, $20. Have at it. Like,
Oh, you know, it's going to be more than that.
Wishful thinking. Wishful thinking. And they'll be $20 individually.
Probably.
You want to buy red, blue, and yellow. But you have Pokemon Home integration at this point. Like, there's so much they could do with putting those games on modern systems.
Mm-hmm. And my prediction is that we're going to get it February 27th, 2026, because that is the 30th anniversary. And it was the 20th anniversary when they put Red, Blue, Yellow on 3DS. So my prediction is next Pokemon Day, we are going to get like at least Red, Blue, Yellow. I'm hoping for more than just those like first three games, kind of shadow dropped onto Switch 2. But again, as I always say, try to predict Nintendo at your own folly.
I really thought you were going to say February 27th, 2026, because it's the day Resident Evil 9 is coming out. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Totally. I follow your logic here. Sure.
Also, it's my birthday. So
what a great day.
It is. It is awesome that every single year on my birthday, I get news of one of my favorite franchises. So I can't be too upset about that.
No.
Except I never get a day. Like, it's always like, now it's Resident Evil as well. I always lose my day. It's like when my brother was born on the same day, like as my dad's birthday. It's like my dad knew from that day forward he was never having another birthday. Like,
nope, his birthday's been erased.
Exactly. And that's how I feel about Pokemon. Pokemon is the son that erased my birthday. But Jesse, I did not get a chance to go to Summer Game Fest. We'll talk a little bit about why I did not make it out there a little bit later in the show. But you did.
I did.
How was it?
It was a good time. It was obviously a little strange with everything going on in LA. But other than that, like the event itself was fine. It was nice to see everybody. It was nice to be around folks. Saw some good games. And yeah, I mean, like I got to play things like Digimon Time Stranger, which is now like shot up the top of my list of things that I'm very excited for. Yeah, speaking of, like, we were talking about Pokemon, like Digimon, they're doing some stuff I wish Pokemon would do. I'd wish that Pokemon would have the bustling towns filled with Pokemon the way that Digimon does. And like, I know I'm a little late to the party. People love Cyber Sleuth and Next Order, I think, is the other one. People love those games, but yeah, Digimon shot up the top of my list. But it was nice.
You're sounding like the Android user when like Apple gets like, oh, we got our this new thing, and Android users go, we've had that for 4 years now.
And honestly, that's how it's been feeling, because like I feel like people have been yelling about these Digimon games for like 10 years now, because Cyber Sleuth, I think, was 2015, and it was, everyone's like, these games have been doing this, and I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, who cares? And now I'm playing it, and I'm like, oh no, they were right. The green bubble textures were right all along.
Yeah, I've never dove into a Digimon game, but I've heard good things from people like our dear friend John Carson. He told me some good stuff about it one time, and I was like, oh yeah, it does sound good, and then I never played it. So this
is the one.
Which one is it again? Like, what's it called?
Time Stranger.
Time Stranger. Okay, I will have to look out for that. Is it coming to Switch, or is it just like other consoles, you know?
I believe it is currently only announced for Xbox, PlayStation, and PC, but I wouldn't be surprised because all the other ones are on Switch. So wouldn't be surprised if this one made its way to Switch too.
It might be one of those cases where there was those reports that like Nintendo didn't really provide very many dev kits ahead of launch. So it might just be like, that's why we're seeing so many ports. Like, you know, we're going to be talking about Borderlands 4 a little bit later. The reason might be that we're seeing like, all right, well, yeah, this date for PS5, Xbox Series X, PC, but then Switch 2 is going to be a later date. And I think that we're going to see a lot of that if those reports end up being true, and Digimon maybe no different.
Yeah. But otherwise, Summer Game Fest was a good time. You know, like I said, it's nice to see everybody. Got to see a bunch of Capcom stuff. Got to see Bandai stuff. Got to see, what else? I played Directive 8020, the new Supermassive joint. Shaping up to be great if you like the Dark Pictures games. There's another one of those.
What was your favorite game that you played? Was it Digimon, or
it was Digimon?
Wow.
I heard a lot of buzz about Mixtape, the Annapurna Beethoven and Dinosaur game. I did not get a chance to play it, but I heard a lot. Everyone who came out of that booth was like, "This is the best thing at the show. You have to check out Mixtapes. You have to check out Mixtapes."
I
So I'm
think
bummed I didn't get to check that out.
I think Charles Hart from Game Informer got to check that out. So
Yeah.
I read his preview and it sounded very cool.
Yeah, it's a killer soundtrack. Devo, Smashing Pumpkins, like
Oh wow,
you've got some really good, some heavy hitters there.
that's
And then
awesome.
obviously Magic Final Fantasy was there.
Mm.
Sucker for that. Like that was just, yeah, of course. Yeah, I'll go see that.
I know there are so many cool collaborations that Magic is doing right now, but
Yeah.
Final Fantasy one is like up there with the Marvel one to be like, oh, you guys are really making me want to get into another like card collection habit, which I
Yeah.
already have way too many Pokemon cards, but it's like
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to start a new binder full of Magic cards. Like I just don't. Like I've
No.
resisted to this point, but like if I happen to stumble upon a booster box of Magic Final Fantasy cards, I might be weak and
Yeah.
pull the trigger on one of those. But those are freaking expensive, though.
Yeah. Luckily, the singles are coming down in price. So if they're just specific cards you want, they're not too bad as long as
Okay.
you're not going for the like super rare foils and alternate arts. Like if you just want the card, like some of the basic cards, pretty easy to get.
Okay. Well, maybe I will, but that also seems like a very bad gateway drug to me just having another full binder of cards, which is not something that I need right now. Jesse, you were talking to me before coming or going to Summer Game Fest that you were trying to do a bit with a couch. Or
Yeah.
like, did that ever end up happening? Did you find a home for the couch where you were going to just let people come and chill and you'd record conversations with them?
I did not find a place for the couch, and it was two parts. Well, I brought it to Giant Bomb, and we had some fun with it there. But that being said, I did bring it to Play Days, and the security asked me what it was, and I said, "Oh, it's just like an inflatable couch for some bits." And the guy just goes, "That's cool, I guess," and then just like let me through with it. And then every time I tried to take it out, there were like, this is going to sound really silly. There were like police walking around, and I know they weren't going to arrest me for the couch, but I was also like, I don't want to tempt fate with everything that's going on right now. So I'm just going to like quietly put this away and try to find a new spot. And it just never panned out. I talked to a couple people at their booths and I was like, can I like blow up a couch right now? And they were like, no, we do not have space for that. So it never like quite manifested. And then on the last day I was kind of like, screw it, I should just do it. And it just never happened.
I mean, there's some open areas. You could have just probably blown it up in the middle of like the green outdoor area and nobody would have questioned you.
Yeah, I know. I got it for next year. When I'm feeling a little more bold, a little more emboldened, I will definitely give it another shot.
You're always
Now that I know I
scheming.
can get in with it, I
Well,
can do some stuff with it.
maybe. I mean, who knows what next year is going to be?
That's true. That's true.
If there is a next year,
You never know.
you never know. Every day is a gift, Jesse. Remember that.
I will always remember.
Speaking of gifts, this show is brought to you by the wonderful folks on the Patreon page. Without their support, I could not continue doing this show week after week. If you want to come join, you can do so at just $3 a month. That will get you access to the community Discord, where we are planning the very first All Things Nintendo community night. We will be playing Mario Kart World in as big of a group as we can on Friday, June 27th, likely 1 week after you're hearing this episode. So in order to get access to that, you'll either need to join the community Discord or the Patreon. We'll have details in there. And also just a disclaimer there, we are going to do our best because Lord knows Nintendo is sometimes quite, we'll say abstract with how they handle grouping up online in groups. There are also $5 and $10 tiers that get you perks like early and ad-free episodes and shout-outs at the end of every episode. All tiers get you priority access to the Q&A episodes, so you can head over to Patreon and search All Things Nintendo or type in patreon.com/Brian Shea Podcasts. You can also find All Things Nintendo merch on Dashery, but you better act fast because just this week I got another notification that those scoundrels over at Nintendo of America have once again copyright claimed a couple of my designs. And this time it didn't even have the word Nintendo on the designs. So I don't know what they did or what they saw, but they've taken 2 more designs off my shop. And I understand, though, it's not like they would ever use a name that is closely associated with an established copyrighted brand owned by another company. But completely unrelated, we'll be talking about Donkey Kong Bananza in the main segment. But before we get into that, we've got a little bit of news to hit, Jesse.
All right.
So as we discussed on the show last week, the Switch 2 has been declared the fastest selling Nintendo console and fastest selling video game console of all time. However, according to a new report from the game business, most third-party games are reportedly selling lower than expectations, and this has been the discourse of the day if you've been on social media. The one exception that they point out is Cyberpunk 2077, which seems to be selling pretty well on the system. The report says that 62% of Switch 2 physical games were sold as first-party titles, which basically means Mario Kart World and the Switch 2 versions of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. It does say that 62% excludes the Mario Kart World bundle, which means the number is actually way higher.
Right.
And according to the report, one publisher even said that the actual numbers were below even their lowest sales estimates. And then if you look over on Circana, which is the formerly known as NPD, which tracks physical game sales in the United States, the best-selling physical Switch 2 games so far are 1, Mario Kart World, unsurprisingly, 2, Cyberpunk 2077, and 3, Tears of the Kingdom Switch 2 Edition. It's also worth noting that Matt Piscatella came out, who is at Circana, and came out and said that if you compare the Switch 2 third-party sales to the Switch 1, they're actually doing better on Switch 2 than they were Switch 1. So it seems like some of these were actually pretty, like, maybe miscalibrated expectations that they're saying in these reports. But still, the point stands. Like, a lot of developers seem to have had high hopes. I have a few ideas for why these kind of missing expectation sales might be going on, but do you have any ideas off the top of your head why sales might be a little bit lower than these publishers were hoping for?
I think it's a couple different things, right? Because it's a lot of the third party games are old games, and not even like old games, but games that your early adopter has probably already played somewhere else. Two, I think we have a lot. We've had a lot of talk in the industry, but just at large, how well third party and indie games sell on Switch. So I think their expectations were always going to be calibrated higher because it's like we understand where the baseline is now for the Switch. So we assume that the Switch 2 sales should match, if not be higher, because so many of these devs that ported their game to Switch, especially early on in the console's life cycle, were taking a risk, especially coming off the Wii U. So it's like they didn't know what to expect by porting it to the Switch, and then their games blew up on the Switch. They sold so many copies because everyone wanted to play something on handheld. Now you have the Switch 2, so your expectations, these publishers' expectations are calibrated higher. The console is launching with a lot of third-party games that aren't brand new games or new enough that a lot of people haven't played them already, with maybe the exception of like Split Fiction. That's maybe the newest of the catalog, I would say, on ported to Switch 2 outside of like Bravely Default and a few others. But then you also have a more competitive handheld market than you've ever had before. You have your Steam Decks, your ROG allies, your people who still just have a Switch 1 who didn't upgrade to a Switch 2. Like, there's all these different facets that weren't at play with the Switch 1. So I can understand how publisher expectations are much higher than they maybe should have been.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's also, I think there's a lot of backlash with the Game Key cartridges for
Also
a lot of
that.
people who are in the know about, like, if you buy this physical version of this game, it's basically just like a download code in that you have to have inserted when you play, which
Yeah.
also gets, bad press, bad rep, and it's just not a great solution for these games.
I don't love the game key card thing, but every time I look at that, and I'm not here to say that that's not like a legitimate problem or a legitimate concern. I think that preservation is a big problem. Owning your games is a problem. But I do wonder how much of that is like an online problem, is a hobbyist problem versus your general person who's going to go into a store and just buy the game because it's on the shelf, which is a lot of what the Switch audience is. People that are just walking into their Targets and being like, oh, I want to play this game, and buying it and never thinking twice about the game key card problem. Because I do feel like that is a very hobbyist slash online problem, which I'm not saying isn't a problem, but I don't know how much of that plays into it all.
I think
I'd be curious to know.
it might be kind of along the lines of what you were saying about all these games. So, like, Yakuza 0, Split Fiction, Sonic X Shadow Generations, Street Fighter 6, Hitman, Civ 7, Hogwarts Legacy, Kunitsugami. I bet all the people who wanted to play those games already have already played them if they're like plugged in enough. And I think that anybody who got the Switch 2 right at launch, they're plugged in enough to like be following Wario 64 when pre-orders go up and like all that type of stuff. So I think that might also mean that like a lot of the people who have their Switches right now are more clued into the fact that these game key cartridges are, not the best solution for distributing physical things. But I think that will fade away as more people like kind of in the mainstream. Like I don't know if I know a single person outside of like the games industry that has a Switch 2 right now. Like I've talked to several gamers, several of my gamer friends. They're like, oh yeah, I either didn't get a pre-order or I'm just waiting until like, some more games come out. Even people in the industry I've talked to are like, yeah, I don't know. I'm not Mario Kart isn't really like my thing. So I'm waiting a
Yeah.
couple months before I get one. So I think that like as the kind of the Switch 2s become more readily available, I mean, I'm not trying to insult or anything, but like the less like tuned in,
Yeah.
I was gonna say less knowledgeable, but that's not necessarily true. Just less keyed into like the online discourse. Those people will start getting their hands on the Switch 2s, and that's when they'll be able to be like, yeah, I'm just going to go buy this copy of this game that is only a download thing, and they've been untainted, unpoisoned by the online discourse that we've all had our brains rotted by. So
Yeah.
I think that there are a few key factors. I mean, I also think that there might be something to the fact that there were no early reviews. I know that means like,
Yeah.
it sold out everywhere, so I'm not saying that hindered like Nintendo's sales, but I think there might be some hesitance because look at how a lot of these third party games handled on the Switch One.
Hmm.
Like trying to play some third party games, like we've joked several times that like when they brought Stray to Switch, I think it was Kyle Hilliard who made the joke that said that like, and it has the Nintendo Switch exclusive loading screens, and it's like same thing for Prince of Persia. It's like, yeah, these are good games and people should play them, but like Mortal Kombat 1, I would tell people play that literally anywhere but the Switch.
That was brutal. That
And
was a brutal one.
I wonder how much of that is that there were no early reviews saying like, hey, like you know, Street Fighter 6 doesn't run like garbage on this, or Sonic X Shadow Generations is able to hit 60 frames per second. Stuff like that where, people in the media or influencers or whoever you want to get your news from are able to verify that like these are actually good ports. And, from my experience, they all are, or at least very good, if not excellent ports. So that's the big discourse on social media as we are recording this right now. But speaking of third party games on Switch 2 and ones that we are highly anticipating, we know that Hades 2 is
Mm.
coming to Switch 2, but probably not until it receives that elusive 1.0 release. And it's been in Steam Early Access for over a year, hit Steam Early Access May 2024. But according to developer Supergiant Games, the studio is actually getting ready for its 1.0 launch very soon. On a Steam blog that it posted recently, the studio wrote that it is, quote, heading into the final phase of Hades 2 development, which involves adding the story's true ending and other finishing touches. Jesse, how much of a Hades guy are you?
I'm a huge Hades guy, and I've been playing every update of the Hades 2 early access, the same way I played every update of the Hades 1 early access.
Wow. So where does the first Hades rank among either your favorite indie games of all time or your favorite roguelikes of all time?
It's number one, number two on a given day, just on
Wow.
both lists of all time. Like, I obviously big Supergiant fan, just overall. So
Hmm.
when they announced that they were doing this, it was one of those cases of a Game Awards shadow drop at. It's part of the Epic Store when they were launching all that back, whatever that was, 2018, 2019, something like that. And I played it and I fell in love with it, and I was like, oh, I just want more. I want more. And so I just every time a new update came out, I just kept playing and kept playing and kept playing to the point where when the one Hades went 1.0 back in 2020, I had already cleared that game, 50 to 60 times. So I waltzed in there on the 1.0 update, just, beat him once, saw the end of the game, was like, great, I did it. And then obviously I cleaned up a lot of the newer stuff. But with Hades 2, I said I'd be different. I said I wouldn't play any of it until it's out. And that was such a lie. I lied to myself so hard on that. I played the heck out of it when it dropped in early access. Then they had a huge update in October of last year, played all of that. They had a huge update not too long ago, I want to say a couple months ago, played all of that. And then they just dropped another update yesterday. And I haven't had a chance to play that one yet because I've been busy with other things. But I'm going to play the heck out of that. So, when it comes into 1.0, my guess would be September, October ish. That's about when the first Hades launched. I'm ready. Like, yeah, I'll play that game, and I'll play it on Switch too. I'll buy it on Switch too again.
Have you heard anything if the first Hades got like a performance update on Switch 2, or is it run any better?
Ooh, I haven't checked. That's a good question. It already ran pretty all right. It would benefit from a resolution update, just like another pass on that.
Mm.
But it ran pretty flawlessly on the Switch, I'd say. So I don't know how much of a performance upgrade it would need, but that's a good question. I honestly might go check that out after this alongside what was it, Beetle Racing?
Beetle Adventure Racing on Nintendo
Beetle Adventure
64.
Racing. Yeah.
Yeah, excellent game.
It's my homework.
Hades is also an excellent game. I have held off on doing Hades 2. I actually did what you said you were going to do with Hades 2, where I was like, you know what? I have it on my Steam Deck. I'm going to wait for that 1.0 release because I just want to experience the game like in its entirety as I'm going through it. So I'm very excited for a 1.0 release for Hades 2. And here's the dirty little secret about me is I never beat Hades 1.
You should do that.
I really should. That's why I'm asking about the performance of it. I hope it runs
It
better.
runs well. It runs well
Okay.
on Switch 1. So hope, fingers crossed, it runs as good, if not better, on Switch 2. But
You would think
it's a
it
good place to play
would
that
because
game.
they were like one of like the big like third parties that they highlighted with
Yeah.
the Switch 2 reveal. So I would imagine that they would want to go back and be like, oh yeah, let's make this other game. Now that a million people know this Hades 2 is coming, let's make Hades 1 run even better on Switch or at least Switch 2. So
Yeah. And it's cool to see that partnership continue because obviously the Nintendo got to release Hades 1.0. They got that announcement in that direct. So it's cool to see that partnership grow and continue. And at that Switch 2 event that we went to, Hades 2 was playable there. Like, it was cool to see that team there and being like, yeah, we are a major player in the Switch 2 launch year.
yeah, they're a fantastic team too. Oh man, since Transistor, I think that I've seen
Mm.
them at every single gaming event that I've gone to, and it's always good peeps over at Supergiant. So looking forward to Hades 2. Last week, Jesse, we covered a ton of Summer Game Fest adjacent streams full of all kinds of news. And during the main segment of this episode, we'll be breaking down the Donkey Kong Direct. So all kinds of recent streams to talk about. But we have another one to throw on top of the pile for next week. Capcom announced just they're doing another showcase, and it's going to cover some of the games that were announced at Summer Game Fest, like Resident Evil Requiem is going to be featured in some capacity. They teased the Street Fighter 6 DLC is going to have some sort of news. I would imagine maybe a release date for the first character in the year 3. And then they also said new information for Monster Hunter Wilds and teased Pragmata. So some stuff to look forward to. We don't know how much of it is going to involve the Switch or Switch 2, but they said that the stream will be about 40 minutes long, which is a long time for a stream that it may only have 4 games. But outside of those 4, do you have any guesses on other games that might show up?
No, Capcom is usually, I feel like, pretty good about outlining their lineup for the year and for the following year. And I feel like they've got some pretty heavy hitters. Like Monster Hunter is going to have a pretty banner end to this year with the summer update that's about to hit, and then the inevitable fall and spring updates. Street Fighter is just kind of cooking along. Resident Evil, they're obviously going to pull out all the stops. I wonder if they finally show some of the stuff that we got to see behind closed doors at Summer Game Fest. They finally reveal some of that footage. But as far as like something new, I don't know. I don't know if they need to show anything, like have a new thing or anything else to show. They love to put sales in these things. They love to be like, we're having a Capcom publisher sale. Check out Blorbo for $10 off. And you're like, okay, yeah, I will check out Blorbo.
I'm opening the eShop right now.
Yeah. And so I don't know. They'll talk about the Capcom Cup probably or something. They love to do all their promos along the way. So I think that's how you fill out 40 minutes, honestly, is you show off a good chunk of Resident Evil, a good chunk of Pragmata, which is another game I did play at Summer Game Fest. Very good. I liked it a lot. And then you just fill it in with the small little Monster Hunter. Here's Logia Cruz. Here's the next monster, whatever. And then, you call it a day, and that's 40 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's probably it. No hope at all behind those eyes for Mega Man.
I hate to say it. I think Mega Man's dead for a little bit. I think he's gone for a hot minute. Just nothing. There, Mega Man has shown no signs of life for a bit now, and I think they want to get Onimusha out of the way. They want to like reintroduce people to Onimusha. Be like, remember this thing? All these remasters we're doing. We had this new one coming out. I think once they get over that hurdle, they can start looking at some other people. I think Mega Man it's time for him to come back. 11 wasn't great, but hopefully they could do better.
Mm.
But yeah, I think it's a bit before Mega Man. Anyone screaming Dino Crisis, I think get real. just get real, man.
Just play Exoprimal, right?
Yeah, Exoprimal was cool. That's a dinosaur game for you. Marvel vs. Capcom, no way. Marvel's got the Arxis Tokon. Like, yeah, like I feel like a lot of the Capcom things you would normally shout during one of these are getting fed somewhere else by something else.
1942.
1942?
Yeah. Did you ever play that?
No.
It is a top-down World War II airplane combat game.
It's like a shoot 'em up, like a shmup. I've played. I don't know if it was 1942. I've definitely played something that is incredibly similar to that, if not that, in the local pizzeria by my house.
Oh yeah. There were so many of those back in the day.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Honestly, give me that. I'm with you. 1942. Let's do it. Let's bring it back.
All right, Jesse, we will close on this since it was actually an exclusive announcement that I covered for Game Informer. Materia Collective, which is a gaming-focused independent record label and publisher, released an orchestral tribute to Pokemon Red and Blue, and it's helmed by Nolan Markey, who has provided music for Star Wars, The Bad Batch, Ahsoka, and the Legend of Vox Machina. And there are 4 options to choose from for the vinyl. There's standard black, fire red, water blue, and electric yellow. There are some exclusivities tied up in there.
So no leaf green?
No, that was the big misstep that I thought. But you got red, blue, yellow. So I guess like for the US audience, you get that. So like I think electric yellow, you have to go to like some of their shows in order to like there's like orchestra performances, and you can only get that there. The water blue I know is exclusive to the Materia store. So you can pre-order them through the Materia Collective store starting today. And the shipping date is set for Q4 of this year. But if you are like me and you don't want to wait, you can actually jump in and listen on your streaming service of choice this week. So June 20th, aka this Friday, it's out. And the album is called Symphonic Journeys Pokemon Red and Blue, and it should be on Spotify, Apple Music, and other streaming services as you are listening to this podcast. Jesse, do you listen to game music outside of the games themselves?
Yeah, all the time.
What's your go-to?
I love me, and this won't surprise anybody, a Final Fantasy 14 lo-fi, like lo-fi beats to write to. I love that. There was a Johto orchestra, like Pokemon Gold Silver orchestra thing that came out like a long time ago that I don't have the vinyl for, but that's on YouTube. I listen to that a lot. Just really good rearrangements of a lot of the Pokemon Gold, Silver, Crystal music. Outer Wild soundtrack is like a constant on my rotations for game music. Yeah, go back. It's a lot of Final Fantasy, a lot of Pokemon, a lot of sometimes some general Animal Crossing, like the 2 a.m. New Horizons night theme. Like, give me that. What about you though? What's your go-to soundtrack?
Usually Persona 5.
It's a good one.
Fantastic music. I have Persona 3, 4, and 5 vinyls, and I adore them, but I also have them all on like my phone for Apple Music. I like a good Sonic the Hedgehog soundtrack, whether the Genesis or like some of the newer stuff. There's also some very good stuff there. The Final Fantasy X soundtrack is quite good. And also I have the Pokemon soundtracks all on my phone. But I have the thing I probably listen to the most is I have a playlist on my phone that is like my favorite video game vocal tracks. So that has like Herald of Darkness from Alan Wake 2. It has like all the Crush 40 songs from Sonic, all the different Sonic games, modern Sonic games. Has the theme song from Final Fantasy VII Remake that I'm blanking on. Hollow.
Hollow is really good. Yeah.
Very good song. So I like that, like where it's like listening to like vocal tracks that, you know, evoke a feeling from a game that you had, but it's also like a really awesome song to just listen to on its own. Like I swear I've listened to like Herald of Darkness probably more than any other video game song at this point.
Oh, it gets you amped up. That's like a really good one to just be like, yeah, let's go. Anytime I want to cry, I listen to Memories of You from Persona 3. It's like, yeah, okay, I'm ready to feel hurt. Feel bad.
So rather than opening your phone and getting on social media, you just listen to that song instead.
Listen to that and get real sad. Just one single tear rolling down my eye.
But yeah, also the Mario Kart World soundtrack, freaking phenomenal.
So good. incredible. I'm like constantly shocked every time I hear a track from that game.
Yeah, I've talked about
Incredible.
how like it has gotten me emotional on multiple occasions, and it's like I look at what's going on the screen, and I'm like, this is utterly ridiculous. Like or Waluigi is like cruising around the desert dressed as a vampire, but like I'm like starting to tear up a little bit because there's an incredible arrangement of like Steam Gardens from Mario Odyssey playing, and I'm like, oh my god, it's so beautiful. But yeah, so I actually am really looking forward to the day that there's some official release of the Mario Kart World soundtrack, because I will listen to that on repeat. Just incredible versions of some of our favorite game songs of all time. But Jesse, we are going to take our first break of this episode, and when we return, we will be discussing the Donkey Kong Bananza Direct, as well as my hands-on impressions of Borderlands 4. We will be right back. We are back, and we got a Nintendo Direct this week, believe it or not. It's not the standard multi-game Direct, but rather this thing that Nintendo's really been doing over these past few years with games like Tears of the Kingdom and Super Mario Bros. Wonder, where we get to about a month away from launch, and they decide to put out a 15 to 20 minute deep dive on one singular game. And wouldn't you know it, this time it is Donkey Kong Bananza that they did a about 18-minute video for us to get all the details about this game. We're not going to go line by line, Jesse, but we are going to talk about the big hits. If you want to, by the way, if you want to hear my hands-on impressions from back at the Switch 2 reveal event, you can go listen to that episode from that, like when the Nintendo Switch 2 was fully revealed back in early April. But Jesse, you were also at that event.
I was.
What did you think when you got your hands on Donkey Kong Bonanza?
Oh, I thought it was an absolute joy. And the thing I've kind of been saying, and I think a lot of people are kind of saying, is this is my Switch 2 launch game. This is the game I've been, since it's been revealed, has been that I have to have a Switch 2 before this game comes out.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got my hands on it shortly after it was announced, we played that an hour after after we found out it existed. It was just a pleasure. It was just an absolute joy. Everything works how you expect it to. You hit A, you punch down, you hit Y, you punch to the side. Like it just flows in a way. And obviously we had a very, very small piece of the puzzle here. We did not get to go explore a lot of the sub layers or really anything outside of that main little rock we were on. But it was enough to get a sense of what that game can be. And then paired with this Direct now, we have a very good understanding of what Donkey Kong Bonanza is going to be. And I think it is going to be an absolute delight.
By the way, you have been vindicated by the fact that the UFO actually is in Mario Kart World. People may recall when Kate Sanchez was on here a few weeks ago, I was saying that I'm hoping that the UFO was removed, like it was in your build, but was removed, and you just have to like basically act like a conspiracy theorist grandpa for the rest of your life. Like, I'm telling you, there was a UFO.
I have to be Tom DeLonge of Blink-182. Aliens are real.
But you're vindicated in that regard. But now I'm the one who saw something a little bit different, and I need to know if you saw this in your play time of Donkey Kong Bonanza. I got down into like a sub level that the demo basically teleported me back up to the main. Okay. All right. I didn't know how rare that was, but like I found an area and it was like, because I kept digging and I was just going down, and I found like an area and I went down in there and they're like, oh, you're not supposed to go down there yet. So we're going to teleport you back up to the main floor.
It reminded me a lot of the levels in Odyssey where you would be in a world and then you'd like go through a door and then it'd be like, here's like a puzzle, like here's a room with some platforming and then you'll get a moon at the end. And in this case, I'm assuming it's a banana. That's what it seemed like. I don't know how in depth those are, but that's what that really reminded me of. And the game was immediately like, nope, you're not allowed to see whatever's down here. We're going to put you back up at the top. And I went, I want to know.
So let's get into it. This Direct hit as of this recording yesterday, or right, yesterday. Yeah. Jeez,
it's been
all
a long
my days
week.
are mixed up. It has been a very long week. And as we knew when we played it at the Switch 2 reveal event, the game is all about destruction. So you're smashing through terrain all directions, like you said. Like one button's punch down, one button's punch like to the side, one button is punch upwards. And you can also, hand slap to find secrets and collect nearby items. There's like a sonar type of situation when you hand slap, which is interesting. So like you can find like hidden bananas, which I guess is going to be more helpful in a game like this than it was Odyssey, because I
for
feel like in
sure.
Odyssey, like if there was some type of like sonar ability that I'm, you know, unless there's one that I'm forgetting, that like it would really like break the fun of finding the power moons in that game. Whereas this, it's like it's buried literally everywhere. So it's like it makes sense that they would want you to have some ability to like just see the outline of these banandium gems, right? That's what they're called.
Banandium, yeah. We
Okay,
just love making up words.
we do.
Banandium.
Banandium. Well, it's Bonanza spelled very wrong. So
Yeah.
we're
Yeah,
just
why
making
not?
sounds and letters combinations. Yeah. So there's chained moves like ripping a chunk out of like of rock out of the ground or wall, or even like ripping it out of an enemy. It looks like I did not do that in my playthrough, but they're like, yeah, like certain enemies you can like rip out parts of them. I didn't realize we were going for like the Mortal Kombat style dismemberment,
You
but
can
you can,
chunk jump.
yes, you can chunk jump. You can
Chunk
toss those
jump.
at enemies. You can also use it as like a surfboard, which does feel really good when
Yeah.
you're doing that. Because like I was like trying to roll around, I'm like, well, obviously he can roll. Like he's been able to do that since Donkey Kong Country. And then they're like, oh, well, try that when you're holding a rock chunk. And I tried it, and I'm like, okay, this is going to be the way that I get everywhere in this game.
Yeah.
The thing that they showed off in this that I did not experience in my playthrough was the ability to throw like softer chunks of
Mhm.
terrain and like build like a bridge or whatever. Like, did you do that at all in your playthrough?
So I it happened to me, but I wasn't entirely sure like what the property was, like what the function there was in terms of why that was happening. And then I think I was watching the Treehouse the next day, and they had like briefly touched on it. They were like,
Oh,
"Oh, each what's the word I'm looking for? Like terrain has a different property. It's soft or hard
explosive or
explosive or whatever. And like when you throw soft at hard, it sticks like mud."
hmm.
And I was like, "Oh, that's interesting. I don't really know what I'm going to do with that information, but it's cool that that exists." And then in this, they kind of showed it off a little bit more in terms of what the functionality, I guess, could be for something like that.
Hmm.
It is cool when you think about like making platforms to get up somewhere. You're like throwing mud at the wall and then you're jumping up and trying to go somewhere else. I'm interested to see how that plays out in the full game.
And one of the ones that they showed was like a kind of like a rainbow road style terrain where he
Yeah,
grabs it and he like floats as long as he's grabbing it, which is kind of a cool idea. And I'm sure opens up all kinds of interesting like exploration tactics that
absolutely.
people are going to have a blast breaking this game. I feel like between the
Yeah.
destruction and like the different abilities. But yeah, destruction is the main way that you're going to explore the game. And they showed one instance where Donkey Kong punched an enemy into a wall and it like blew up the wall and revealed a secret. So like I think this is actually the element that I'm most excited about is just like how like at first I was like, okay, well everything's destructive. You can climb, you can punch through walls and stuff. I was worried that they would be getting too abstract with like hiding stuff because it's like, all right,
Yeah.
this is so open. How am I ever going to have any direction or anything? But I appreciate that they seem to have breadcrumbed it enough that it's like you're able to know where you need to go with it. And the exploration is my favorite part of Breath of the Wild, and I feel like it's going to be my favorite part of this game as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting, right? Because in Breath of the Wild, they sort of experimented with the idea, what if you could climb anywhere, right? Like, what if you could just jump on a thing and climb it, and the only thing that really holds you back is your stamina? In this game, there doesn't really seem to be a meter that you're dealing with here. It's kind of just destroy and just see what you can find. And so I can't wait to see people start just breaking levels down to their like bare form, because
Mm-hmm.
there is eventually you do hit what I'm assuming they'll call like bedrock or something. You do hit a point where like you can't dig, and that's the game being like, you need to have a platform to stand on. We can't just let you destroy the entire level. So I'm really interested to see what people start to do with that. But I think my favorite thing I saw out of the entire direct is really small, but I think it's like the most interesting thing is that when you look at the map, you can see all of the destruction you've caused in the
Mm-hmm.
level. And so you can see sort of your path and how you've carved out from point A to point B. And I love stuff like that, like just like diegetic maps and stuff like that. That stuff, that's the stuff that I love. Just
That's the
looking and
good
be like,
stuff.
I created chaos in this world and I made it a nightmare for everyone who lives here.
Literally reshaping the map.
Yeah.
But yes, you've made it. You made everybody else's lives worse in this world. So yeah, very good aspirations on your part. But they did reveal Pauline is your
Yeah.
character or your companion throughout the game. It was we saw her as Odd Rock, right? Like that
Oh yeah,
was,
yeah.
and then it was revealed in like the opening scene, which I thought that it was very. I think it was Giovanni Colantonio over at Digital Trends and friend of the show, who pointed out that like it starts off like almost like a YouTuber's like anime tribute.
AMV video,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But it sounds like they maybe got the same singer as the one that did Pauline in Mario Odyssey, like the
Odyssey.
Jump Up Superstar song. It sounds like maybe they got the same singer to come back and do more songs for this, which if they did, I'm on board with that because she was amazing in that game.
Absolutely. It's funny because when I was playing the demo, whatever it was a couple months ago, I noticed all those like tuning forks that were around the world, and I was like, "Oh, that what a weird thing." Like what like I guess like my brain associated like, "Oh, DK rap, like maybe Donkey Kong's going to have some sort of vocal component and that's what these tuning forks are going to activate." And then as soon as I saw Pauline, I was like, "Oh, this makes so much more sense." This like I can't believe I didn't put two and two together earlier when I saw that. Like, oh, of course they're going to have Pauline singing, and that's how these. I think their travel points now is what the direct showed them as. I
Mm-hmm.
don't particularly remember, but I remember seeing those and being like, that's a weird thing. And now in retrospect, it's like, oh, that's so obvious.
Yeah. So she has that. We'll talk about another ability that she has in a little bit. But we also met, we saw Rambi and Cranky Kong are in the
Mm-hmm.
game. We also saw Dixie and Diddy Kong very briefly. So that's fun. Like it would be weird if they weren't in the game.
Yeah.
Then we met the giant elders who possess ancient bonanza powers.
It's when things start to get weird.
It really did. And
Get
basically
weird.
they enhance Pauline's powers so she can temporarily transform Donkey Kong into new forms. The ones that I jotted down that they showed are Kong Bonanza, which lets him punch harder, I guess, and have like more
Super
power.
Saiyan.
Yeah, Zebra Bonanza, which lets him turn into a kind of a zebra gorilla hybrid and sprint through. Like this is weirder to me. This crossover, this Animorphs like bastardization is weirder to me than Elephant Mario. Like because
Oh,
Elephant Mario was just
100%.
a bipedal like elephant, right? This
Yeah.
is what if a zebra and a gorilla, like a silverback gorilla, had a baby, and
I,
it's very strange.
I posted about it yesterday, but obviously, a big uproar was, oh, what does this mean for the canon, the timeline of Donkey Kong? And I'm like, you're worried about the timeline. A zebra bonanza, ostrich bonanza, that's not an issue to y'all. That's totally normal. But like, you're gonna get upset about, oh no, Cranky Kong and Pauline, this doesn't make sense. No, Donkey Kong turned into an ostrich. I think we need to address that, man.
Yeah, I mean, there are more concerning things than a very strange age gap.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Zebra Bonanza gives him speed boosts, and Ostrich Bonanza lets him fly. So
Which
the Ostrich
cool.
Bonanza is in line with what we have when we've had ostrich companions in Donkey Kong Country, so that's good. I will say we talked about the Mario Kart World music, or Mario
Mhm.
Kart World music in the last segment. The music in this sounds like it's also going to be insanely good.
Hmm. You get little snippets of classic Donkey Kong throughout this direct, and I'm really happy to see that like they want to chart new territory with like musically and expand what Donkey Kong can be rhythmically. But also it's like you're gonna get your classic country themes in there. You're gonna get your DK rap in there. It might be on a new form or in a smaller sense, but I do appreciate that they're not throwing that out with the redesign of Donkey Kong. They're not like this is a completely new era for Donkey Kong. It's like no, we're gonna pay our respects to what came before and also give you a bunch of new stuff.
I really appreciate that they are still paying homage, like they did in Donkey Kong Country Returns as well,
Hmm.
of like David Wise's incredibly good soundtrack that he established with that first Donkey Kong Country.
Yeah.
I am so excited because you know it's coming. There's going to be some rearrangement of the underwater theme from Donkey Kong
Oh,
Country 1.
absolutely.
Oh my god, just
One
one
of the
of the
best.
greatest gaming songs of all time. So I'm very excited about that, and like you said, there seems to be a lot of original music as well, particularly concerning Pauline. The enemies appear to be the Void Company, which is run by
Mm.
Void Kong and has other Kongs like Grumpy Kong and Poppy Kong. And it seems like at one point Pauline was held captive by them and she escaped because they're like, "Come back to us." And their mission is, I guess, to go to the planet core, and it seems like that's also Donkey Kong's mission.
Yeah.
So they've blocked off a bunch of paths and built a bunch of enemies for you to fight on your way to the core to try to stop them. And like we said, Banandium gems are the main
Vanadium
collectibles.
sounds radioactive. I'm sorry. It just
It
does.
does. It does. And they basically seem like power moons in Mario Odyssey. So maybe they are radioactive, because if they came from space the way that the way that the power moons did, then I would say
Yeah.
Banandium gems probably do have some radioactivity from just being out in space.
All right.
But yeah, so some of those are scattered throughout the world, while others are hidden in challenge courses and side-scrolling stages, which I would imagine that is like the lower layer that we encountered in our
I think
hands-on
so.
demo. Some sort of challenge stage. The side-scrolling stages really piqued my interest, because it's like those can be hit or miss from a 3D platformer. Like if you look at
Hmm.
something like Sonic Generations or Sonic Forces, I would argue the 2D stages are the worst part of those games, and it's largely because they don't quite nail the physics of like
Yeah.
in running a 2D game in a 3D engine.
Yeah, I kind of hope it's a little bit more akin to the way that Odyssey did it, where it was you sort of just like warp pipe in, you do a small little segment 2D, and it's like just enough that you're not really paying attention too much to the physics, you're not really getting frustrated, but then you're out and you're like, oh, that was a cool way to traverse this little place, get a moon, get out. I kind of hope Donkey Kong's like that, where it's, those levels aren't overstaying their welcome to the point where you do start to kind of realize like, this doesn't feel quite right. I'm getting frustrated. I'm like trying this thing over and over again. And just like those quick little hits for the 2D stuff, I think is the best way they could do it.
Yeah. And once you get enough Banandium gems, you can actually unlock new skills for Donkey Kong. And they showed a bunch of
Hmm.
different ones. I'm not going to run through all of them, but it seems like, you can kind of, the way any good skill tree does, allow you to like kind of cater your character to your play style that you want to have. So I guess like if you want to swim better, you can do that. If you want to have more impactful destruction or be able to pick stuff up faster, seems like those are all options. There are other collectibles true to Donkey Kong's 3D lineage, if in the one game that he's had as a 3D platformer. Lots of collectibles which can be traded for items at shops in the world. It seems more in line with Mario Odyssey than it did Donkey Kong 64, though. So you can get outfits for Donkey Kong and Pauline, change up Donkey Kong's fur color. And it looks like most of the clothes also have some sort of ability or stat benefit that they grant as well. How do you feel about these collectibles and shops? Does it feel overwhelming, or does it feel kind of like they learned all the right modern game design lessons?
I think the thing that bums me out about the shop is that the gear has like stats and abilities tied to it.
Yeah,
Because I think my favorite thing in Mario Odyssey is you're just dressing Mario up however you really want, you know? And I kind of want to just dress Donkey Kong up. I just want to have him wear whatever I want. I don't want to have to worry about like, oh, do I have the swimming pants on? Like I understand from a game design perspective why that's done, and like it incentivizes you to explore and get the Banandium chips and all the other stuff. But at the end of the day, I hope that there is a version of this in which I can just put on whatever I want, whether it's like a transmog system or whatever you want to call it, that just lets me stats
yeah.
clothing. Like I just want to dress Donkey Kong up in the funniest thing I can find, the goofiest thing, and not have to worry about if I have the right stats equipped.
Or just have it so you can equip one for like have some sort of system where it's like, yeah, I want this ability that I've unlocked. I've unlocked this outfit.
Mm-hmm.
I want this outfit to be my like abilities and stats, and this to be like the cosmetic that
Medic.
I
Yeah.
have. So like you still have to unlock it to get those abilities, but yeah, like there has to be. I hope there's some way for that, but I don't know. Nintendo doesn't really have, especially in these platformers, like the deepest like customization options.
No. But I am glad to see that it's there, because
Hmm.
I do think that that is a really good incentive for collecting additional stuff.
Agreed. Do you think that we get a like a Donkey Kong Country style skin the way we had a Mario 64 style skin, or even just a Donkey Kong 64 skin?
I absolutely believe we do. I
Okay.
it they love to do things like that. They love to put those little nods in, and so I just think they can't help themselves. I think they are like, oh, that was the first skin on the list. You know what I mean? They were like, oh, the polygonal 64 skin, yeah, put that one in. It's like, got it.
Yeah. I mean, you'd think so, right? Like, so they the thing that they showed off that surprised me the most, I think, aside from Zebra Bonanza, was co-op. And the
Yeah.
second player aims Pauline's vocal blasts using either the mouse controls, or it looks like you can also use gamepad controls. And you can do this through game share, so the second player can use their system to aim and you can control Donkey Kong on your system. But the crazy thing that I was like, what? Was when they were like, oh yeah, you can even use the Switch 1
Mm-hmm.
for game share. So the main person is playing on Switch 2, and then you basically transmit your game over to the person holding their Switch 1, so you can do it that way. So like, even though the game is not coming to Switch 1, you can still play it on Switch 1 through game share, which is very, very strange to me.
Game share seems like a super underrated thing that they are doing. And like a lot of people look at it and they're like, oh, cool, I could play 51 game clubhouse, 51 games or whatever with my friends. It's like, yeah, that's sick. And then it's like, oh, by the way, we got this thing. It can kind of work on a Switch 1 if you're local, and it's probably streaming the game in some capacity, right? Like it has to be. It's not going to download the game
Yeah, it's a
on
cloud
Switch
version
1.
for
It's
it for
some cloud
sure.
version, which is it's just cool tech. It's cool that like Nintendo is willing to try things like that. And then also, I think the co-op looks pretty enticing. I think it looks better than the Odyssey co-op, which was like kind of control Mario's Cappy, like try to kind of control the hat. Where this is like, no, you're actually impacting the world as you play. You're creating destruction. You're helping with enemies. You're doing a lot, and
Mm-hmm.
I think that's cool. I think utilize the power of the system. Utilize the two Joy Cons, the local game share. Like use all that stuff to your ability. Like put something like that in there, and they
Yeah,
did.
and it's I like that it's impactful in that regard. It's also interesting because like you said, like it's got to be a cloud version of some sort,
Mm-hmm.
and that leads me to believe that it's got to be similar tech to what Xbox uses, maybe at a smaller scale because it's local, where it's like, oh yeah, I can play a game that my iPhone would have no chance at running, but
Yeah.
I can play it because it's coming from the cloud, not actually like a local format.
Yeah, it's similar to how they do like I think you can play Resident Evil 7 on the Switch and that's a cloud version,
Or
stuff like that.
Control or something like
Control,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, things that
Um,
your Switch could never handle. Like your Switch would melt if it tried to play Control.
yeah.
I don't know why Kingdom Hearts 2 is a cloud version, but
You sometimes we just can't ask questions. It's just there's no good answer. There's just no, we're not going to get an answer that makes us happy.
it would just be like, yeah, we didn't want to port it. That's why.
Yeah. Yeah, this was the easiest solution.
So outside of the main game, there is a mini game called DK Artist where you can carve and paint stones using the mouse controls. It kind of looks like the Mario 64 like facial manipulation screen.
Yes,
That
very much so.
very iconic. And one thing they have not yet revealed and continue to not reveal through this direct is what development team is working on the game. And through the digging that I have done, I am fairly confident, almost certain, that it is the Mario Odyssey team. And I think most people are leaning that as well, given like the structure and aesthetics of the game.
Yeah.
We've referenced Mario Odyssey more than a couple of times when talking about like, oh, you can go buy stuff at the shop, and there's multiple collectibles and different currencies, and like even the UI when they get a Banandium gem is looks like when Mario gets the power moons. But like, it really raises the question of why do you think Nintendo is so secretive about what teams are making their games? Like they do it for like the spin-off games too. Like when like Mario Party, like Super Mario Party Jamboree is coming out. They don't tell you until after it's out what development studio is making it.
Is it an expectations thing? Are they afraid of like, oh, if you find out this team is working on the game, it might, color people's opinions of the game or something? Because it's so strange. Because I feel like with Zelda, right? Like they've gotten to the point now where they'll kind of just say it's Grezzo if Grezzo's
Mm-hmm.
working on something. But even that felt like pulling teeth with Metroid Prime 4 originally. It was like, oh, it's Bandai. It's like an internal team at Bandai, or like they're always like you said, like very secretive, and I just don't understand why. But the only thing I can think of is one, they don't want leaks. They don't want people knowing where to sniff around and try to find stuff. Or B, it's just they don't want the expectations of a team's past work to, you know, bleed into whatever the next project is. If it's, a Mercury Steam or something, and people are like, oh, well, they made that Castlevania game. I hated that game, and now I don't want to play Metroid 2 remake or whatever. And it's like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. Because we do that a lot. Like there are a lot of people who will be like, "Oh, that team's making it. No, that team sucks." And it's like, okay, well, give them a shot. Let's see what they're cooking with.
I imagine if you asked like somebody like Doug Bowser, he would probably say it's like, oh, well, we don't want to focus on the developers. We want to focus
Mm-hmm.
on the game, and we want to focus on it's just Nintendo, regardless. Like whether it's ND Cube or it's Grezzo or it's like Nintendo EAD, it
Yeah,
is
next
they're just going
level,
to
all of
consider
them.
that under the Nintendo umbrella. But it's like, yeah, we've come to realize that there are multiple divisions and teams underneath that umbrella, and the team that makes one game might not necessarily be well suited to do another game. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so I mean, even though I think there is a level of quality that all Nintendo fans have come to expect, it would be nice if we could get like official confirmation it's the Mario Odyssey team.
I have seen so much, whether it's the Odyssey team or if it's a smaller team that has spun off of the Odyssey team, and it's just like this could all be rectified if somebody would just come out and be like, "Hey, it's this team. You don't need to worry about it anymore. Like you're good."
Again,
Um,
I'm relatively sure at least part of
yeah.
the team is the Mario Odyssey team, but to that end, hear me out, Jesse. Hear me out
All right.
here.
Okay. I'm ready.
If it is in fact the Mario Odyssey team,
Mm-hmm.
it would be a huge missed opportunity to not have one of the areas be New Donk City and have some sort of reverse festival scene like in Mario Odyssey, especially now that Pauline is confirmed to play a huge role in this game.
I see where you're going with this, and I like what you're cooking because it was a huge missed opportunity in Mario Odyssey that Donkey Kong was not there.
He was at the end, like the pixelated like arcade
Yeah,
sprite.
yeah, but if they could full circle that in some way, like that would be pretty incredible.
And this would be where Pauline, like maybe it's the final stage, right? And that's
Yeah,
where Mario shows up, and that's where Pauline realizes that, like, oh well, I have political aspirations, and I'm
aspirations.
going
Yeah,
to become the mayor of New Donk City, and like that becomes her dream, and then like it turns out it's a prequel to Mario Odyssey.
that would be the coolest thing. Like it ends with her getting up on stage as Iggy Jump Up Superstar, and like the credits start rolling, and you're like, I don't know what just happened, but that was so cool.
That would be incredible synergy. And then it turns out that Donkey Kong Bonanza is just basically like Yoshiaki Koizumi's PT, where it just
Yeah,
teases, hey, you can go and see a trailer for Mario Odyssey 2
Odyssey
right
two.
now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't think any of that's going to happen, but I wish it would.
You never know.
Donkey Kong Bonanza coming to Switch 2 on July 17th. We also got news of a new Donkey Kong and Pauline amiibo, which unlocks
Mm-hmm.
Pauline's diva dress, and that what that does is it increases your luck regarding enemies dropping discs when you beat them. It turns out there is a way that you can unlock it in the game itself. It just says that this unlocks it early. They actually updated their verbiage
Mm.
after people said, "Oh, is this the only way you can get it?" And they're like, "No, no, no, it's early." So the figure itself is Donkey Kong with Pauline riding on his back, and it comes out the same day as Donkey Kong Bonanza, July 17th. It seems like it's $30.
It is roughly half the price of that video game.
I mean, I'm almost glad that I don't have like the space to have amiibos anymore because I would probably buy this one.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah,
thought about it. I have too many.
I
I
still
don't even
might.
have a lot. I don't have a lot of amiibos. I have like the handful that I care about, but that's already too many.
I have all the Zelda ones and then a
Mhm.
decent amount of the Mario ones. But yeah, the other ones are just like random ones. I'm like, oh yeah, I kind of like this weird Metroid squishy amiibo. So I picked
Yeah,
that one up and then like some Splatoon ones. And it got out of hand very quickly, but I'm far from like a massive collector. Like I have not gotten any of the Switch 2 ones yet, even though, I probably should get the Zelda ones just to complete my collection.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I am looking forward to Donkey Kong Bonanza quite a bit.
Mhm.
We are just under a month from launch.
Yeah.
How are you feeling about this one? What's your hype level?
I think before the direct, I was like very excited, and then after the direct, and kind of seeing more of the vision here, I'm through the roof. Like my most anticipated by far. Like if I'm so happy that this game is less than a month away because I think if it was any longer, I would explode. Like I have the Switch. I'm enjoying Mario Kart. Don't get me wrong, but like I'm chomping at the bit for like a meaty platformer to play on my Switch too. And like this is coming perfect timing. Like almost a little over a month after the console launches. I'm just through the roof.
Yeah, it did this direct has done wonders for me. I
Hmm.
came away from my hands on time with Donkey Kong Bananza at the Switch 2 event and thinking like, that seems fun. I need to know more about the
Yeah.
direction they're going with this though. Like it almost felt like they dumped us in like a tech demo area
Yeah.
of the world. Now that we're seeing so much more of it and how deep like some of the stuff goes and starting to learn a little bit about the story, even though I doubt the story is going to be the main draw here, it is skyrocketed up my list as well. I am super stoked for that game, and it comes out July 17th. So circle that on your calendars if you have not already. But Jesse, speaking of games whose stock has skyrocketed in my mind, I
Mm.
traveled to Novato, California earlier this month, and I got I guess it was late last month, and got my hands on Borderlands 4.
Oh.
And I was obsessed with Borderlands 1 and 2, and I kind of fell off after that. Like, I love Tales from the Borderlands, but that was mostly a Telltale thing, although it was developed in collaboration with Gearbox. Pre-sequel didn't do it for me.
Mm-hmm.
Borderlands 3, I bounced off almost immediately after jumping into that. And then I didn't ever get around really to spending much time with Tiny Tina's Wonderlands beyond the big preview that I did for that game. So and then we're not even going to talk about the movie.
No, we don't have to.
I basically felt as though maybe this is a franchise that had passed me by.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, yeah, I guess I'll go play Borderlands 4 in California. And then, as we've found out, also a little bit more, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But I came away from this being like, okay, I'm back. I am fully back in this franchise.
Okay.
I got to play as two of the Vault Hunters in two of the areas. So I entered the Fade Fields, which is like the starting area, and I got to play as Rafa, who is the Exo Soldier. And basically, each Vault Hunter has 3 action skills, which are like completely different play styles that you can have, which are like activate on a cooldown. So one of his is like an arm cannon. That's like the best comparison I can make would be like Samus from Metroid,
Okay.
where like you activate this action skill that operates on a cooldown, and suddenly he has like piercing like energy blasts that he can blast out of an arm cannon that he forms around his left arm. And then there's another one that has like auto aiming turrets that like it'll just automatically give you support fire with anything that is like on your screen. So like if you're in a big firefight and you need help, you can activate that ability and it'll just like automatically target any enemies that are in your field of view. And then there's dual blades. Like I forget what the actual name is, but he grabs like blades out of his arms and he runs up and just starts like you can do like melee sword play basically on enemies. And it's
Interesting.
very different styles. And obviously you also have all the guns at your disposal as well. There's a whole new suite of traversal where it's like there's a grapple rope where you can use it to both grab items from across the room and like bring them in and throw them at your enemies, or you could swing and like grapple up like kind of like Spider-Man on like the grapple points. So that's really good. There's like a double jump and you can do the double jump into a glide and then glide over to enemies and then ground pound and like kind of do like an AoE shockwave around them. So there's a lot of traversal stuff, but these action skills that I'm talking about that are specific to each individual character, um, you have to choose one to have equipped, and then you can only activate it with I think it's like the L1 button, and
Mm-hmm.
it takes you into that. So Rafa was like kind of like the exo soldier, like kind of like soldier archetype. The other thing is with the guns, there are licensed parts. So like in the past, like there's been a manufacturer that you pick up a gun in Borderlands and you have like a manufacturer, and
Yeah.
it's like, all right, well, this manufacturer for whatever reason has like if you headshot somebody, it'll ricochet into another enemy. And so they have licensed parts now where you can mix and match like through the RNG system. So like
Oh.
you get like a this one gun that has like a this manufacturer, and it has as a result it has this trait. It also has a scope that is like this manufacturer that has like incendiary ammo. So it's like you're getting like mixing and matching these different traits from these manufacturers, and it's all randomized. So it takes the billions of combinations of guns and it ups it to like even more billions of combinations of guns. So I think it's like something like 5 or 6 million combinations of guns that are available through the RNG system that exists in Borderlands 4.
That's every time they up the number, I'm just like, yeah, but how different do they feel? And now the way you're describing this, it sounds like pretty drastically. Because I think that was my problem with 3 is was getting so many guns all the time, and they all felt kind of the same. They were just like variations on the same theme. Uh, but I do like the idea that like the licensed parts from like Jacobs or Hyperion or whatever are like
Yeah.
parts of this loot pool now. It's not just like this is a Jacobs weapon. It is like this is a weapon that consists of all the different manufacturers' parts or whatever.
Yeah, it's
And that's
two slots. One is the
two
manufacturer, one
slots,
is the
and then was
licensed part.
okay, but still, that's still more than three had. So I'll take it. I am a little curious with your time with the with Borderlands. Is that I've been seeing? I watched that direct, that like 20-minute PlayStation state of play that they had for it,
Mm-hmm.
and it seemed like they made a lot of really smart changes to the way that that game moves, the way that that game plays. It felt like, oh, it's got some Destiny in it, it's got some Halo in it, it's got some. It's a learning from a lot of the games around it instead of trying to be its own thing. Did you feel a lot of that when you were playing it? You're like,
Oh
I can
yeah.
see this game and this game and this game and this game.
And I think they even have somebody who worked on Destiny on their
Mm-hmm.
team. So it's like it's almost like, I think of it kind of like the way like Uncharted was, where it was like without Tomb Raider, Uncharted would not exist.
Yeah.
But then what happened with Tomb Raider is they started taking inspiration from Uncharted. So it was like,
Mm.
kind of like this inspirational Ouroboros.
Yeah,
And that's
absolutely.
the way it almost feels with Borderlands, where it's like, yeah, Borderlands established the looter shooter genre. Since then, all these other like loot based action games like Warframe and Destiny and all these other various franchises have popped up. Outriders, yeah, that's one too.
Outriders, yeah.
And it seems like Borderlands kind of stayed stagnant for a little bit, but now this one feels like the time where they've really learned from a lot of the lessons other looter shooters and like loot based action RPGs have learned over the course of their history.
Awesome.
And it shows like a lot of quality of life stuff. Co-op works in a way where it's like you can instantly warp to any location that your friend is at,
Oh, cool.
and you can spawn on them. You can replay encounters if you want without having to like back up. There's always like weird workarounds you had to do if like you wanted to replay a boss battle. And speaking of boss
Yeah.
battles, my second session was a primordial vault, and I played as
Ooh.
Vex, who is the dark siren archetype. And instead of being elemental, Vex actually is like a summoner kind of like ability pool. So for one of her action skills, she can summon these phantoms, and one of them is the Spectre, which is like a turret NPC
Mm-hmm.
almost that stands off to the side and just fires at enemies. And the other one is the Reaper, which has like a melee attack that it'll charge up at enemies, and also has a lot of aggro, so a lot of the enemies will focus fire on him. And you can summon up to 3 of those at a time,
Oh, wow.
at least with the build that I was playing. Then another one is Phase Familiar, where she summons like a giant like phantom cat minion, and it'll attack enemies, and like it has like buffing AoE ability that you can do on command, and teleportation around the battlefield. And then there's one where she can detonate an explosion that buffs and heals her. So also the way that the elemental works for her is that whatever summoning thing that you've done, whatever action skill you have equipped, they will be imbued with the elemental affinity of whatever gun you have equipped.
Oh, okay. That
So
makes
if
sense.
you're like going up against something that's weak against fire, and you summon these phantoms to come in and fight for you, these specters and these reapers, or Trouble, her like minion cat, they will have like fire attacks if you have incendiary ammo equipped, or they'll have ice attacks if you have cryo equipped. It's really, really cool the way you can like mess around with that. And then I ended so the vault, you're going through like these platforms, where it's just like waves upon waves of enemies, like really intense battles. Like this seems like it's going to be some of the more difficult content. And I ended on a boss battle against the Primordial Guardian Inceptus. And it's like this giant, like it almost, I don't know, like it reminds me of like, it's like a giant lizard, and it has like these like massive claws and a giant tail that it whips around at you. So you're constantly having to use like the side dash and like the
Mm-hmm.
slide and double jump and everything to avoid that. And then like you use the grapple, like there's like these weak points on it, and you use the grapple to unlock those. So like you're basically like ripping open wounds on its shoulder, and it exposes a weak point. You have to blast it, and that does like the crit damage. and then like midway through it like climbs up on the ceiling, encases itself in like a cocoon, and it floods the arena with like acid. So you have, and then like these mushrooms, like stalactite mushrooms, kind of grow from the ceiling, and you have to use your grapple to get up there and like jump from mushroom to mushroom while shooting this cocoon so it ends this phase of its battle.
Oh,
So
wow.
very like playing into like the new traversal abilities that you have in this, and I had a really great time with that. uh Comes out September 12th on all platforms other than Switch 2, but the Switch 2 version is listed as sometime in 2025. I gotta say, I came away from this thinking that this is now one of my most anticipated games of the year.
You talking about it's putting it on my list. I like I said, I watched that 20-minute state of play roughly, and I was like, this looks cool. Maybe I'll get to it if I have time. But it sounds like they've made a lot of really smart changes. It sounds like they have new ideas. They have a lot of new ideas that they're toying around with, and it sounds like they're learning from previous mistakes that they've made with three, and people didn't love three. And so now it's like, oh well, I don't know what I'm doing in September, but it sounds like I'm going to be playing some Borderlands 4.
I mean, honestly, I think you should. And there's a little bit more that we can talk about here, but not too much more. If you are on the social medias, we at Game Informer revealed that Borderlands 4 is the cover game of our first issue of Game Informer in nearly a year. So you may recall that I did not get access to my Switch 2 until the Friday evening after launch because I was traveling for work. And then I mentioned something with the podcast with Krista Yang where we talked about our initial impressions of Switch 2, that I worked something like 26 hours that weekend. And that is in addition to Summer Game Fest, because I was in Frisco, Texas during the Switch 2 launch week. So I was embedded in Gearbox for 2 days, and I sat down with developers from across the entire spectrum of the development team, from Randy Pitchford and former Game Informer editor-in-chief Andrew Reiner, who's now in an executive role over there, the directors of Borderlands 4, the project producers, the managers, the lead designers, lead artists, everything, all the way down to more in the weeds folks on the art, audio, and design teams. I even had lunch with Randy Pitchford in a nerd-themed restaurant owned by his wife.
Mm.
So lots of fun times there. But on top of all that, maybe most exciting to everybody listening to this, I played several more hours of exclusive stuff, including being the first person to play all 4 Vault Hunters, and I also got to explore some new areas nobody else has yet gotten to see or play. So you can look forward to that coverage starting next week over on GameInformer.com. But if you want the print version of the magazine, there's still time to take advantage of the early bird pricing. And for a few more days, I don't know when the exact cutoff is, new print subscribers will get the Borderlands 4 issue as their first issue in the mail. It's not too late if you're listening to this around the time that this episode goes live. But yeah, lots more Borderlands 4 coverage coming over on GameInformer.com and in Game Informer magazine as we relaunch our print subscription. If you want to take advantage of that, you can go to GameInformer.com/subscribe. Jesse, any closing thoughts on Borderlands 4 before we take our final break of this episode?
No, just excited to play it now. I'm ready for it.
All right, well then let's head on into that final break, and when we get back, we will be doing definitive ranking and getting Jesse's eShop Gem of the Week. We will be right back. We are back, and it's time for Definitive Ranking, a recurring segment where we take a Nintendo topic and give our own personal top 5 lists. Since this episode was talking about Donkey Kong's big return to 3D platforming, Jesse, I think it's only fitting that we rattle off our top 5 3D platformers of all time. It's a big topic, so I'm going to throw it to you first. Start at 5, count it down to 1. Give me a sentence or 2 about each.
All right, number 5, Croc and the Legend of the Gobos. Now, this game just got a remaster, and that remaster is not good. Do not, it's not worth the original. Go play the original. It's not a great 3D platformer, but it's one that I love dear, and it's near and dear to my heart. So I have to put it at number 5. It cannot go any higher because it is not that great of a platformer, but it is something that I hold very, very, I cherish it. Number 4 would be Jack and Daxter, the Naughty Dog classic. I don't know. I consider it a 3D platformer by all intents and purposes. It's a 3D platformer. one of the first PlayStation 2 games I ever played. And the series drastically changes after Jack and Daxter. It becomes a GTA clone in a lot of ways. But that first game is weird and wonky and zany and got a lot going on. And it was pretty unique to me as a kid. I had never really seen anything quite like it. Number 3, I know it's new, but I got to give it to Astrobot.
Mm.
Just an absolutely solid celebration of PlayStation history. You can't really ask for much more. They've been updating that game. The speedrun levels are so much fun. I've been playing so much of it. There's more levels on the way. Like, that game is just constantly getting so much love, and it's constantly adding new fun little PlayStation bots to it. I don't know how if you're someone who loves 3D platformers, I don't know how you don't love Astrobot.
Oh yeah.
Number 2, maybe controversial, Super Mario Odyssey. That's my Mario pick. Uh, I just think it's best in class. I can't. I like 64 is good. Galaxy's great. Sunshine, get out of here. Not on this list even remotely. But Odyssey, just like what an absolute delight. We talked about it so much this episode. And then my number 1 best 3D platformer is Psychonauts 2, and it's not even close.
Wow. So my confession is I have never played Psychonauts 2.
It is a fantastic, fantastic, super imaginative 3D platformer that talks about mental health and anxiety and depression and all of these things with such grace and such tact and such a subtle hand. And the relationships between the characters are just so emotional, and it's so wrapped in this like colorful world and this vibrant, sort of aesthetic. But when it gets really into it, it's like really, really powerful stuff that this game tackles. And it does it so graciously and so just subtly in a lot of ways. And on top of that, it's just a really good 3D platformer. And I had so much fun. I still like to think that I'm the first person to ever get all the achievements in the game during review period. I did it in like a couple days, and I was like, I have to be the first one. There's no way I wasn't the first person to get 1,000 achievement points in Psychonauts 2. So Psychonauts is one of my favorite franchises of all time, and I think 2 is just an exceptional game.
I wonder if it will ever come to Switch. We see Xbox because they published that, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So
they didn't originally it was like a Fig like crowdfunded game, and then Microsoft eventually picked up Double Fine, and it came out as an Xbox game.
yeah, I wonder if with Microsoft's new collaboration with Switch and Nintendo, if that could be one of the prime candidates to bring to Switch 2 when we finally get
Yeah,
like a Nintendo Direct post Switch 2 launch. Like that
I
seems
think
like
it
a
would be an
home run. That and
excellent.
like Halo Master Chief Collection and stuff like that. Maybe even Gears of War since they're bringing it to PlayStation now. Like,
Yeah,
I don't
the
know.
sky's the limit at this point. Anything can come to Switch.
Really, it truly can. We have some overlap as we typically do on these top 5 rankings.
It's
But
Croc Legend of the Gobos.
my number 5 is not Croc Legend of the Gobos, but it's one that came out slightly before that. It is Banjo Kazooie.
Mm.
I remember renting this when I was in middle school and playing it so much. And it's funny because if you listen to like the little like garbled voice acting that is in that whenever any character is talking, it makes me feel like I am losing my mind. It makes me feel like I need to check into some sort of hospital and get my brain checked because like everything is coming in garbled. But for some reason, it has a charm to it that works. And I think that this is rare doing their collectathons in the most balanced way that they did. Like I think Banjo Tooie went too far with it. Donkey Kong 64 went way too far with the collectathon. Banjo Kazooie was balanced so well, and I really enjoyed like exploring the world, and the music is terrific. Banjo Kazooie underrated gem, but it's nowhere near as good as Mario 64. That is the debate that I see a lot of people having.
Mm.
Mario 64 blows this out of the water, but for the sake of not flooding my list with Mario games, I'm not putting Mario 64 on my top 5 list. So there is a little bit
Ooh.
of a contradiction in there with the fact that Mario 64 is not on my list. Number 4, just like your number 4, is a questionable. Is this an actual platformer? Shadow Generations.
I see how you got there. I can see the through line.
I mean, the open zone stuff is 100% platforming. The levels themselves, I mean, there's platforming elements to it, but I think they're more action games. But I think this is the best 3D Sonic content we've ever gotten, and I really, really love it. And I feel like there had to be some sort of Sonic representation in here. If we're going pure platformers, then I mean, obviously the 2D games are the pick, but we're talking about 3D platformers. So I'm giving it to Shadow Generations. Originally, I had Sonic Frontiers on here
Mm.
because I feel like that has more platforming elements than Shadow Generations. But yeah, I'm giving it to Shadow Generations just because I think it's an overall more solid experience.
Hell yeah, it's your list.
Yeah.
Sonic Shadow Generations, number 4.
Number 3, I have 2 Mario games on this list. This is the first of those. Super Mario 3D World.
Yeah,
Underrated, maybe the most underrated Mario game of them all.
for
I think
sure.
that there's a very good case for this to be the most underrated Mario game. It just doesn't have the love that the other 3D Mario games get because it's linear 3D. It's not like exploration based like Mario 64, Sunshine, Galaxy. Well, I guess Galaxy is fairly linear in a lot of places as well. But for some reason, maybe it's the Wii U, but it came to Switch and it didn't even really make that many waves. It sold well, but it wasn't like I feel like I still don't hear people talking about this as like one of the best 3D Mario games when it really is. And maybe it's because it's co-op. Maybe people think like, oh, it's a co-op game, and I don't think that counts. It's just as good in single player as it is in co-op, and I don't understand why there's just not more love paid to this game.
Do you count Bowser's Fury as part of that package now? Because
I
Bowser's
mean,
Fury is also exceptional.
Bowser's Fury is fantastic, and I did think about that when I was adding this. I feel like it would be cheating for me to add Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury because
It's your podcast, your list. You wanna you wanna put it in there? You
I
can.
think Bowser's Fury is a fantastic side game that maybe would be in consideration for the next game. Like
Mhm.
if I was going to include 3 Mario games, it would be up there with like Galaxy for
Yeah.
like me wanting to include it. I've really narrowed down like the process of elimination of what my number 1 is going to be. But number 2 is Astrobot. For all the reasons you said,
Mm.
it is a joyous celebration of video games and PlayStation, and it's the best designed 3D platforming game I've ever played that's not made by Nintendo.
Mhm.
And I don't, like I've said when that game first came out, it's like you don't get 3D platformers designed like this unless it has that Nintendo logo at the beginning.
Yeah.
And Astrobot is up there with the best Mario games. And in my opinion, number 1, the best 3D Mario game, Super Mario Odyssey. I think it has the level of creativity that we've never seen in the franchise before, and that franchise is always super creative, so that's saying something. The capturing mechanic is so creative and unlocks so many distinct gameplay opportunities, and the exploration is just second to none. I mean, maybe second to Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, but that's about it.
Yeah.
So I am giving it to Mario Odyssey as my number 1. But Jesse, that brings us to the final segment of this episode. It's the eShop Gem of the Week, a chance for you, our beloved guest, to shout out a game that might not otherwise get the shine it deserves. What is your eShop Gem of the Week?
My eShop gem of the week is Yoku's Island Express, which is a pinball Metroidvania game. And you don't hear that very often. It came out, I want to say 2019, 2018, somewhere around there. Just a fantastic Metroidvania or search action game, depending on how you want to phrase it. It's just teeming with life and character, and the vibes are so good. It's that good summer vacation. We're in like the perfect time right now to play something like a Yoku's Island Express
Mm-hmm.
because it's nice outside. You want to like sit by the pool or whatever, and you just want to have like a good time with this. You play as this little dung beetle, and you're rolling this ball around, and that's your sort of pinball as you go through the environment. You got a lot of new abilities, and you don't have to know anything about pinball. Like, this isn't a game where it's like, oh, this is for the pinball sickos. It's very much a game where it's like, if you understand that the flippers hit the ball, like, that's all you ever really need to know. And you're also a mailman. You're delivering mail. That's why your whole reason you're on the island. It's super wholesome. It's got some dark stuff in there. Don't get me wrong, but it's a very wholesome game.
It is super fun. I've only played a couple of hours of it, but I played it when it first came out. I remember, I think it was maybe Kyle Hilliard who found it and recommended it to me, and I was like, oh yeah, this game is super fun. Or
Mm-hmm.
maybe it was Andrew Reiner. I don't even know. It was somebody on staff at Game Informer back when it came out in May of 2018.
Yeah, 2018.
And I remember downloading it on my Switch and being like, this is fantastic. I can't wait to
Mm-hmm.
play more of this. And then I never did because I just get super busy. That's basically the struggles of somebody who has ADHD and also has a job in the video games industry is
Mm-hmm.
you are constantly having your finger on the pulse. You're constantly getting distracted by other games. it takes something really special to hold my attention. And Yoku's Island Express was a lot of fun, but I had to check out other stuff. So this is something I do want to go back to. If you have not played this game and it sounds like it's up your alley, it's normally $20, but you know what? I looked at the eShop page today. It is currently on sale for $4 measly until June 24th.
That's the best deal you're going to get.
I don't see any way that it is going to be cheaper than that. So Yoku's Island Express, available on Switch right now. But Jesse, thank you so much for joining me for this episode of All Things Nintendo. Sticking through it with a second consecutive week with horrific tech problems. For people listening to this, my internet service provider after the first segment suffered a nationwide internet crash. People in Seattle, people from Florida, everybody was posting about how CenturyLink and Quantum Fiber went down across the entire country. But thankfully, it came back in time for us to get this episode recorded. So, Jesse, thank you for bearing with me through the tech problems. Really appreciate you coming on the show for the first time and hopefully not the last.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. This was a blast. And, I'm always happy to chop it up and talk games and talk everything else. I'll talk all things Nintendo.
Hey, and thank you so much for everyone for listening. As you know, my Patreon and the associated Discord server are the best ways to get any questions or comments in. Also, the best way to stay in the know about the upcoming community night. You can also get in touch with me at brian@allthingsnintendo.com or hit me up on Blue Sky or Instagram at Brian P. Shea. And you can also find me on YouTube. If you would subscribe to that channel, it would help me out a lot. Jesse, tell everyone where they can find you online.
You can find me online at mamavitelli.bsky.social. That's usually my main social media. You can follow me on Instagram if you want. If you type my name in at Jesse Vitelli, you'll find me wherever you want to find me. I have a newsletter called Send News that I just talk about life. It's a newsletter that's not about games, but sometimes it's about games, if you know what I mean. Like mostly world stuff, my life stuff, and then because my life intersects with games so much, there's a lot of game stuff in there too. That's supposed to be a weekly thing. I haven't done one in 2 weeks, so don't hold it against me. But otherwise, yeah, just type my name into your Google bar. You'll find me wherever you feel you want to follow me. That's up to you.
That is our show for this week. Thank you again so much for listening. Take care. We'll see you next time. Before we wrap up this episode, I just want to give a special shout out to the $10 patrons of the All Things Nintendo Patreon page. Alex Stadnick, Andy Junkins, Ben Richland, Chaps My Ass, Derek Sigmund, Dusty Beeman, Ian T. Clark, Jason Thompson, Jawar Hello, Johnny Five, Jordan Sloat, Jose Villalobos, Joshua DeProy, Casey Radio Man, Cody Gibson, Creeper 207, Pat Roberts, Paul at Drunk on Mako, Pratable, Rob McCann, Bobby Mac 265, Robert Sosa, Roberto Nieves, Roger Reichert, Russell Sayer, Smithy Poo, Zachary Pliggy, and Zek 3 Sword Sama. I really could not continue doing this show without you. Thank you so much for your support.